has been working in the area of coastal and marine conservation for last 3.5 decades. Currently, he is working at Srushti Conservation Foundation as a director. Hello Deepak sir. Would you please tell us about marine biodiversity, ocean biodiversity of India?
India, as you know, is blessed with beautiful and fantastic coastal and marine biodiversity. There are two primary reasons for that. One, obviously, is that we have almost 8,000-kilometer coastline spread across both mainland India as well as island chains of Lakshadweep and Andaman and Nicobar. And second is that the entire country is traversed by a whole range of marine and coastal habitats, right from mangroves to seagrass to mudflats to coral reef to sandy shores to rocky shores. And in combination, this is one of the reasons that we have such a huge range of species that exist all along coastal states and Indian territories of India.
Deepak sir, you are working in marine conservation of Lakshadweep Islands. That itself is fascinating marine ecosystem. Please tell us wonderful stories of marine conservation.
Well, Lakshadweep is one of my most favorite place for coastal and marine biodiversity. I've been going there for almost 4 decades. My first encounter to Lakshadweep was in 1981, when my parents gave me a vacation to visit these islands after my 10th standard exam. And since then, almost every year, maybe barring a couple of years in between, I have been going to the islands. In the year 2003, I have started a large project on the islands, and I stayed full time for almost 10 years on the islands. I think it's a unique place in many sense, and I can probably talk endlessly about these beautiful islands. But our work primarily focused in the beginning to see how we can engage communities, local islanders in the conservation of this very fragile but very, very beautiful coral reefs. And it was kind of first experience, or rather first experiment in the entire country towards establishment of a conservation reserve, a community managed conservation reserve. It was quite a bit of a challenging task in the beginning, because there was no model as such within India to refer to. Of course, there are plenty of other cases in other parts of the world, but for India, it was a first experience. So we got the first-hand flavor of working with communities and the kind of challenges it possesses for engagement of them into the domain of conservation. It's been extremely fruitful experience. At times it is extremely frustrating for a number of reasons. Nonetheless, I think in last 18 years that I have been working on the islands, we are managed to actually get more than 600 square kilometer of the coral reef areas protected as conservation reserves on the island. And the model we established in 2003 eventually culminated into this success in 2020, early 2020 in January. I think in a nutshell, I would say that when it comes to engaging communities in conservation, then you have to have a lot of patience, and you have to be seen on or in that particular place, not in a project mode, but in a way that people can connect with you, that you are part of that community. I think one of the reasons why I could reach thus far when it comes to my work in Lakshadweep is because I have spent almost last 3.5 decades visiting this place. I know so many people on the islands. They connect to me whenever I visit there. It's not a new place to me. And I think when that presence is there, then people relate to you. The trust building actually happens through this very subtle, slow and long time process. I think that was one of the fundamental driver for we being there quite effective. My primary work, however, on the island, besides the establishment of conservation reserve, was also to understand one of the globally endangered species of bivalve. We call them giant clams, and scientifically they are known as Tridacnas. They are some of the most long-lived, I would say, marine invertebrates. Tridacnas are known to live for more than 200 years. They are fixed in substrate. They have a symbiotic association with a blue-green algae called zooxanthellae, which stays inside the body of the clam. So, in many sense, this clam is a symbol of the health of the coral reef. The way we call tigers as the indicator for health of forest, we assume Tridacna or giant clams as indicator species of coral reef ecosystem. And understanding that species, monitoring that species, and look at the trajectories of that species over time was of my primary interest as a researcher. So we had two primary objectives of our work on the islands is to create a very robust scientific information on coral reefs and Tridacna and relate it to the broader reef ecosystem, and then work with communities towards establishment of a community co-managed protected area network on the islands.
Sir, whale shark conservation is a phenomenal success story in India. How did we achieve it in the coastal region of Gujarat?
I think it is one of the most remarkable story for conservation of a large charismatic species. As you know, whale sharks has been hunted in India all across coastal states of India for many years, and their populations plummeted like it has plummeted in many parts of the world. But I think 2 decades ago, government of Gujarat, with the help of NGOs, and then a very prominent religious preacher called Murari Bapu, made an appeal to the people, giving a very beautiful example. It's called Wahili, in a sense that when a daughter come to home, to give birth to the child, how we treat our daughter. Do we take care of our daughter or do we ill-treat her when she comes home? I think that kind of a preaching really hit hard to this coastal fishing community. And instantaneously, almost instantaneously, the communities in Gujarat, fishing communities in Gujarat has given up whale shark hunting. I think it's a remarkable story as how a religious preacher can influence people in terms of conservation. Today, it's a great success story globally that once hunted this species today find a great refuge all along the coastal states of India. The fact that this species is still protected under Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act, nothing could help this species unless and until this particular charismatic figure came in picture for making his voice for the conservation of this species. I think it's a remarkable conservation story in India. I mean, there are many other stories, success stories we have for terrestrial species. For marine species, I think this is one exemplary example where a state government, will of state government, NGO, religious preacher, Coast Guard played a pivotal role in saving this species. Today, this species find a great safe refuge all along coast of India. It's not just Gujarat, now Maharashtra, Karnataka, Kerala, Andhra, Tamil Nadu, on the islands of Lakshadweep, Andaman Nicobar, this species is protected. Even if it comes in nets accidentally, the fishing community do release those animals back to the sea. I think that's kind of action by people, makes us believe that conservation of such species is still possible. It's not an impossible task. I think we need to reach to people with an intent for conservation of that species.
Yes, ocean biodiversity is an important ecosystem to protect our environment. What are the challenges we are facing in marine conservation?
I think we have to put this question into two separate buckets. One is a man-made and second one is human-induced challenges. I have mentioned about human-induced challenges briefly. Into excessive fishing is one of the greatest challenge. The pollution that is getting into the sea, which is a man-made challenge, and unregulated pollution is a great cause of concern. Then there are all kinds of coastal development, illegal sand mining, and all those cumulatively will influence coastal and marine biodiversity greatly. And it's not just that influence coastal and marine biodiversity, it will influence livelihoods of millions and millions of coastal people as well. But there are certain issues which are beyond human control to say in terms of doing something about it. Now, for example, elevated sea surface temperature is one of the most severe natural phenomena that can impact in a very short span of time a huge amount of coastal marine biodiversity. Ocean acidification, which is again in a way linked to human reckless kind of industrialization, which is emitting much more carbon dioxide than nature can sequester to. And all this carbon that is getting sequestered or dissolved into seawater, leading to slowly and subtly changing the pH of the ocean water from alkaline to acidic. And acidic oceans are extremely dangerous when it comes to coral reef ecosystem, for example, because corals are nothing but calcium carbonate, and acid will dissolve calcium carbonate. Elevated sea surface temperature will definitely kill coral reef in a very short span of time. So, in combination, some of these natural events are putting additional stress on marine and coastal ecosystem. And besides that, increased intensity of cyclones and hurricanes and all kinds of irregular weather pattern also in a way affecting our coastal and marine ecosystem. The number of dead zones, the increase in number of dead zones globally is a great cause of concern to us. I think there is very little we as individual can do to prevent some of these large natural anomalous behaviors that we have seen. But as an individual, we can contribute in a number of ways in terms of its conservation. Now, for example, the amount of plastics that go into the sea, we can definitely control it. I mean, by simply not using plastic where it's possible will lead to use less and less number of plastic, which will definitely help ocean in a long run. Community actions, small action, as I said, by a small committed group in Ratnagiri district help save one of the fantastic nesting of sea turtle areas. Is a classic example how people can actually contribute for conservation. So volunteering for the cause of conservation is one way. Trying to reduce our footprint on whatever ways we can reduce our footprint is also a direct contributor to conservation of our coastal and marine biodiversity. So unless we put our hands and head and heart together, nothing can be done for this beautiful seascapes that we have in India. So let's put these three things together, and I think we will see much more cleaner beaches, much more beautiful marine life thriving in our oceans, and let our future generation enjoy that beauty forever.
Thank you so much, Deepak sir, for sharing wonderful ocean stories with us. So, protect ocean and protect our life. Go green, go blue.